What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Today, we have two little news items that happened on the court and off the field this week that have drastically swung prices, caused some hype and FOMO, and also caused some sadness in the wonderful world of sports cards. Speaking of sadness, my Cleveland Cavaliers, ugh, ugh, I I'm not ready to talk about it yet. On to other NBA topics. We're going to talk about Tatum and then take a quick look at some Pete Rose stuff, as they are the two biggest names storyline wise in sports this week. Tatum, it looked bad when it happened. You kind of had a feeling. I'm no doctor. I do play one on the YouTube every once in a while. The reaction that he had, you kind of just knew, like, oh, this is real bad, because the players know when something like that happens. And it took a day or so to confirm it. Shams tweeted out the next afternoon that it was, worse thoughts, and he's going to be out for pretty much all of next year, I assume. I don't think they would rush him back. He's still pretty young. But those people holding Tatum cards or Tatum collectors, the question always arises, what do you do in these situations? So let's run through a few things. Let's start with the easy one. If you are a Tatum collector, like you just genuinely like the Celtics or Jayson Tatum, in regards to the cards that you currently own, you are probably doing nothing because you collect player. If he misses a season, it sucks, but you're not as wrapped up in the financial values of what the card prices is doing on a day-to-day basis, because you bought it because you genuinely enjoy the cards. Now, I will say, if you are a Tatum collector, you may see some rare things come to market, because the next thing we're going to talk about is what to do if you want to unload your positions in Jayson Tatum. If you're an air quote sports card investor, some people are going to sell because they're going to be like, I just don't want to deal with this. I'm going to go ahead and move off of this. And you might see some things pop up that don't normally pop up all the time. You see that happen a lot with star players like this when a massive injury gets struck to them. You see a bunch of like low numbered stuff or just rare stuff that hardly ever sees the light of day all of a sudden sneaking out to market. Now, usually most of that stuff will be happening like right now. The way that this has genuinely worked over the last few years in the COVID and post-COVID era, when one of these season-ending, multiple season injuries hits, ACL tear, Achilles, etc., the people that want to dump are going to do it immediately. If you're just like, I'm done with this guy, I want nothing to do with it, they're just going to go list all their stuff on eBay, Fanatics Collect, whatever, as fast as humanly possible and get off of it. So everyone that wants to move off of their stuff is doing it right now. The eBay listings are probably already live. The auctions are already started. Maybe a few people will hem and haw for a couple of days. But most people that want to sell and get out of the stuff are doing it right now. If you're not doing it right now, you're probably going, nope, I'm riding this one out. We will see what happens. And we're going to let this run. I don't care. We'll see you in 2026. So generally speaking, the best prices on more common cards are usually right now, because all that inventory hits the market. There's probably not enough buyers to pick up the scraps. So the prices fall, they level out, and then everyone that sold already. So all of a sudden, inventory dries up quickly, and it's just the people holding firm at their prices. And then you see things slowly start to creep back up again. So if you're a Tatum collector, you're probably not selling, but you should, brush up your saved searches a little bit, because something might pop up that catches your eye. All right. If you are a air quote sports card investor bro, and you have a bunch of Tatum stuff, or maybe a couple nice Tatums, whatever the case might be. This is where you have to ask yourself, are you willing to wait? Let's say you have $1,000 Tatum card. I don't care what card it is. Let's just say you have $1,000 Tatum card. And let's say it's not like ultra rare. It's not something to 5. It's not a 1/1. Maybe it's a Contenders auto. Maybe it's a Silver Prism PSA 10. Whatever the case might be. And you can see, by the way, on the charts up on the screen here in Market Movers, already his stuff is dipping. We'll have a better sense for this by the time we get to the Sunday video. But down 15% on his silver in a PSA 10, down 30% in a PSA 9 over the last 30 days. And you can see that thing really tails off the last 2 days when all this went down. So what you have to ask yourself is, if you have $1,000 card, and you can insert any player you want here that goes out for a long-term injury, like year plus, are you better off to sell at current prices? Can you make that money that you would sell it work for you better than just sticking the card in your Zion case and forgetting about it? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. If that $1,000 Tatum, let's say last week it's $1,000. Let's say this week it's $800. We'll assume a 20% drop. And maybe you don't want to take out. People are so afraid to take a loss on stuff. It's the biggest mistake people make. Do you want to, what's the more likely path for that to get back that $200 you just lost in value? Is it to sit on it and wait? Because now keep in mind, Tatum's out basically all of next season. Let's assume that. Now you're waiting all the way to the beginning of the next season. So we are sitting here in May of 2025. You are looking at, best case scenario, October of 2026. So a year and a half from now for him to make his return, and then him, have a decent season and make a playoff run or whatever, to potentially get his card price back up to $1,000. Or it could potentially even dip more. You don't know. So are you better off to sit around and wait? Or are you better off to say, screw it, I'll just take, let's assume it's an eBay sale, it's an $800 comp. Let's just say you could get $700 cash for it from your local repacker at a show or whatever. Are you better off to take $700 cash today and go use that to buy maybe raw cards to grade, maybe a player that has more upside in the short to medium term, whatever the case might be? Are you better off to put that $700 to work for you, or let the cards sit and marinate and see what happens? Now, a lot of this is going to come down to the individual. If you have a limited budget where you don't have a lot of money to throw around in your fake money pile, maybe you're card rich, cash poor. In a case like that, I would be much more willing to let it sell it, take the cash, and go do your thing with it. If it's the opposite, if it's, the $700 is meaningless to you, you have a pile of fake money, you can go buy whatever you want, maybe someone like that is okay to just sit and hold it. And like I said, this is really going to depend on the individual. I think most people do not fall into that category. I just don't. I think if you were looking at Tatum purely from a financial perspective, you are probably better off to move off of his stuff in the short to medium term and just go put that money back into the market for something else. Because the problem is, he would need to come back in early 2026, play well, and potentially go to the playoffs to see a bump up in price. We know how this goes. And the likelihood of all those stars aligning are just not great, especially first year back from an Achilles is not always the best. So you could be potentially looking at the 2027 season. And then also, what do the Celtics look like? You know, I don't want to get into NBA cap nerd stuff, but they're a second apron team. They have some serious salary cap problems going on. They're probably going to have to do a soft reset, which actually, with him being out all next year, might be a little bit of an advantage for them. We'll see how they play that. But that's essentially your paths for Tatum. If you're a collector, you're not selling, but cool cards might be coming to market. If you're investor bro, in my opinion, I would move off of most of my stuff, and I would rather have the cash than the Tatum cards. Unless you're just sitting on a pile of fake money and then it doesn't apply to you. So that's where I'm at in regards to my Tatum advice for you all. Let's look at old Pete Rose. Some Pete Rose news this week out of nowhere, like an RKO from Randy Orton. He is off the ban list. His prices have spiked. We'll look at this again once again on Sunday. I just kind of wanted to hit on this really quickly. There is no guarantee he actually gets into the Hall of Fame. I think we all need to keep that in mind. This is just, he is potentially eligible. And let's be real, the most irrational people in the world is the Baseball Hall of Fame voting committee. And should he get in, should he not? I have no idea. I have less issues with his gambling and more issues with some of the other things that he had pop up in his life. But I'm not judge, jury, and executioner here. So we'll see what happens in regards to him actually even getting into the Hall of Fame. But his stuff has seen a bump up. I pulled up the 63 tops here and the 64 tops. The 63 tops is his rookie card. I'll just be honest, it is not a great looking card at all. If I was a collector of Pete Rose, I would want a nice copy of the 64. It's just a nicer looking card, but I know it's not the rookie, but I put them both on here. Calm down, Victor. The 63 tops PSA, I pulled upper mid grades here because I wanted stuff that transacted often enough. Some of this stuff hardly ever sells at all. PSA 7 up 20%. PSA 6 up about 15%. The PSA 764 up 15%. And the PSA 6 up 56%. So just could be some weird stuff there with starting and ending points, but massive jump ups there. The other thing that what you look at, which is not surprising, is the total sales dollars are trending in the upwards direction because there's more transactions happening with these cards in the last couple of days. Once again, it's kind of early for this. We'll need to see a couple days worth of data to see how things are going. But generally speaking, even if Pete doesn't see a huge percentage bump up, he is probably going to see a liquidity bump up of people just FOMOing into his cards, even if prices aren't jumping way up on him. Though I would expect some like 10, 15, 20, 25% gains probably across the board, at least in the short term. Generally speaking, this stuff does not hold. But then we'll just have to see what the writers think on if they let him in or not. And then if he gets in, then it's a whole different story. I know Pete Rose is one of the tried and true sports. If you're a old school sports talk radio listener from the 80s, 90s, and even today, the go-to topic when there is nothing going on in the summer months is this conversation right here. So we'll see if he gets in or not, but him coming off the list, it is news and noteworthy, but it is not guaranteed that he's getting in. So we will see what happens with that. As always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. We will catch you boys and girls on the next one. Peace.